Welcome back again. So we're continuing with our tutorial of creating our own CMS content management system from scratch using Cloudflare workers and basically using the Cloudflare ecosystem plus Next.js and other tools altogether. So since yesterday's video was a little bit longer compared to the in comparison to the time itself, today I have decided to create a much shorter video compared to yesterday's video, and here we go. So we're going to continue from where we stopped, right from there. PNP install just to see if there are any updates, and here we go. We have the core pack update, which I'm going to just run simply because this is 10.12. Here is 10.11. So let's run that update. As that finishes up, today let's first, because I can't quite remember where we stopped at exactly, but this, I think this is somewhere. Okay, this is somewhere we are. So okay, so that's fine. Okay, we got that updated. Just run it once more again, and close and run pnp div to spin up our server, our local development environment, and let's see where we are. Okay, we've finished up with that, and we had started on our dashboard. Now all dashboards have all CMSs have one common thing, which is you need to be authenticated in order to access the back end of our system's back end. Basically, you need to be authenticated in order to access the admin dashboard. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up some of these things today, which whereby we're going to set up Drizzle. Okay, first and foremost, let's first start by running let's start by creating a D1 database. We're going to use D1 for our database, which is an SQL database. For our project, we're going to create a D1 database, PNP. Okay, since this is just PNP Wrangler latest D1 create, because we need to create it rather. So create Ferrous. We shall call our database Ferrous. For me, I'll call it Ferrous. You can name it whatever you want to name it there. And I'm going to, okay, sorry, I think okay, I don't think it in, since we are using OpenNext, it's quite understandable that it wouldn't accept the at latest definition of it. So let's use that anyway. Let's use that. First remove this hash key, because basically the other library, so let's say you upload it somewhere, the hash key that is supposed to identify it, or the SH key that's supposed to identify it might be different from the one that you have on your device. So it's best to just leave it as as 10.12.1. The package manager, the package manager itself. So here we need to create our D1 database. Wait a minute. Okay, there's something wrong. I'm going to first need to figure this out. Okay, running PNP crate, PNP wrangle, kind of most likely forces it to reference from this. So if you're going to use PNP, it's usually best you use PNP run plus wrangle. Oh no, that even won't work again. So it's best to just run wrangle by itself, since it's something that is already existent in the system itself. So that was my mistake, and sorry for that. So we have created our D1 database. Sorry I didn't explain what we're supposed to do next, but copy it and paste it here, and this is our D1 database that I've created. I prefer leaving the binding name as D1, but you can rename it to whatever you want, and I prefer it as DB. And then I'll add another part here called migration directory, and the migration directorate, I'll put it as OpenNext migration, though I would prefer it to be migration dot migration, my migration directory as dot migration. And then as well, I'll remove it from our from our Git repository, so that it's not synced to our Git itself. Now, since we have our D1 database set up here, now we are going to go into the process of having to interact with our D1 database. How should we set up everything so that we have interactions with our D1 database? So first and foremost, we are going to run PNP, and this command that we created before, CFGen, that is supposed to create an environment, the types for it with so that we have access to the D1 to create the bindings for this, to export the bindings as an environment. So PNP CFGen, and yeah, that was first. And here we have our interface under environment, we have it under D1 database, that we shall reuse later on. So for now, we are going to head to Drizzle and go to get started and look for D1 database. So we could use this example as is, but it's always best to come back here to SQL and look for better SQL. The reason I go with better SQL is because it's quite easier to deal with and use, and also it's one that I'm more familiar with. So we shall run PNP add Drizzle or RM plus better SQL Lite 3, better SQLite 3, and add that. And also we shall add the div dependencies, PNP approve, in order for me to add this to my environmental, to my basically my package. I'll explain that some other time. I want to speed up this process so that we can get to the part where we actually start some of these faster, and I don't want this video to take long. As well, I'm going to add the Drizzle. Okay, this time is ES build to our environment. this is our workspace basically, and so these are added to our workspace directly. Okay, and we have that set up, and nice. Now up next, what we do, so we have here server, which is basically going to have everything that is related to our backend side, and yeah, that's where we're going to do it. Then the back end part is going to be this side is going to have in the application side, this will have the admin side, or the back end side will have our UI for our dashboard side, and then we can handle the components and the components right here, the functions and components right there. So I think let's handle everything related to the back end right here. So we shall add here DB, and also add schema for our schemes. Now for schema, we shall add index.ts, and then for our database we shall as well add index.ts for it. Then we want to expose our okay, we shall have to expose our database structure or the schemas to basically be reused. We shall have to expose our Drizzle to be reused somewhere else. So get database, we shall use get database slash and return Drizzle, because we want to reuse Drizzle, since we are supposed to use Drizzle for our database, and basically use it for structuring our backend code. So we shall go here, let me put it as a structure Drizzle, since I also need to export the classes. Sorry. I also need to export the types from I have to import the types from our Cloudflare. So we are importing Drizzle Cloudflare div1, and here we're going to go adding our environments from, we're going to get our environments from Cloudflare. So we shall get we shall use Cloudflare get Cloudflare context. So the get Cloudflare context, since we are using OpenNext, we'll get the Cloudflare context from OpenNext. So the context that involve our bindings, and we need this to be asynchronous. So our bindings, so we shall need the binding of environment.db, which is our database, but as well as we shall need to pass our schemas from So for right now, since we don't have any schemas, we can pass that database from now as is. We don't yet have any schemas, and I would think it would be a great idea to pass the I think it would be a much greater idea to pass both the environment and our Drizzle into this dz as Drizzle and env as, this is supposed to be Cloudflare environment. So this is what we're using. Let me try to see if I can cookie it. So as dim it down, let me see. Let me cookie it with React and return that. See, is it okay? I think let's call this DB since it's related to the database itself, since when we are using it we shall use like DB. So we use it as DB count and whatever. So we shall use it basically like that. Sorry, I'm zoning out for some weird reason. Okay, we have that set up. Now we have to set up our studio, since we want to view the studio as well, and that will happen by so we also have to add drizzle.config in order for us to preview our database structure with Drizzle with ease. And so we bring it here. Why is it when I'm recording this kind of gets slow? Okay, this is fine for us. Then here export const. No, I'm sorry about that. Here we shall use const get local path get db get local db path. In order for us to develop locally, we need to get the path for migrating our database into, and in order to get that we need to actually pull it from local path, and in order to do that we need to first and foremost, there are things we need to do first. Define other paths. Dialect is SQL. As well as, let's see, Okay, now we need to also define where our schema is, and we shall put our schema is right there at source slash, no, it's not at source, server, because this is schema, so server slash schema. And that's where we shall find our schema. Let me add it just there for the sake of that. And then we have our output directory, which is going to be the directory for our build output, which is going to build, and then we can migrate it from. As we remember, we used migration. This is going to be our migration directory. Let's get the correct spelling for it, copy it from here, come back right here under migration, paste that in order to get the correct one. Okay, and what next? So driver, we did put dialect as MySQL, the driver. Let's see what driver is for. Okay, D1 HTTP, which is supposed to deal with the credentials for Cloudflare. So for this, we need to enclose it inside here and use process to distinguish between the div environment and the production environment. And for now, wait a minute, process slash env. Okay, sorry about that, something not coming up correctly here. We shall have credentials. Let's do this. Let me first get a better example. Let's get a better example that we can follow. I need us to get a better example because I think there's something I'm missing somewhere, and I can't quite remember what I'm missing. Quite get what I'm missing. See. Okay. Let's try this. I think either comes out, which is not what I think this is. I always don't like to use this because it's kind of questionable. Use it, and let's use this, and for here, and then this lower part we shall use. Okay, the upper part will have the driver to handle the credentials that are passed for the Wrangler itself, and then this one below will handle the local path itself. So here we shall have credentials, and it will take token, so process dot environment dot d1 account token, as well as account ID, d1 dot account ID, and then we do have, no, we don't take host here. I don't think this takes host. I think it takes three properties: the d1 ID, the d1 token, and something else it does have to take. Wrangler path. Okay, token, account ID, database ID, and then the database ID, which we can add right here. Okay, since for now we are going to work mostly in local, okay, but luckily enough we do have an example here. Okay, this should work fine. We luckily enough to have an example that actually sorts our issue up without me having to struggle. Okay, let's just take this one for the sake of it, and then path is supported in Open Next.js, in Open Next, but FS is another story when it comes to that. So we shall import FS from not FS. Okay, I think we don't have that, so let's import FS from there. Why is it screwing with me? Okay, that's fine. It worked out. The problem with why we're getting this error is because most times it won't export anything else other than unknown rather than any. So just replace this with any. Now we need to define it here. First and foremost, we shall start with db generate. We have to generate our database with Drizzle generate. So we have to generate our database with Drizzle generate, and then we need also Drizzle Studio to preview our database and see the structure. So Drizzle Studio, okay, Drizzle Studio, but we also need to migrate our database into our local environment, or our D1 Wrangler, our Wranglers. So we shall define that with okay, let me look through one of my projects in order to actually get a better definition of this. Okay, let's see. Well, up. Okay, I think I got this. Let me just copy this as is No, I don't think we actually need that. We really need this anymore. I don't think we need this anymore. Okay, let me use this. We don't really need this anymore since we have already settled it. Maybe the property names, I think these are way better named than what we have here, which is kind of weirdly structured. So we shall have Cloudflare account ID, Cloudflare database ID, Cloudflare D1 API token. So those are the ones that we shall have for our production environment. So because this is only supposed to happen in production, in development we shall have get the D1 DB path, D1 local path. Now here we need to generate it locally, and let's see, Angular. Okay, let's take this as is. And this is not correctly done to my knowledge, because generate local and production. So local, you want migration line local. Okay, so next we shall copy our database name and use our data and replace this with our database name here, in order to generate our database or migrate our database to Ferrous itself, the database locally, or else migrate it to Ferrous itself, the database remotely. So for now, we don't have any scheme in our we don't have any kind of schemes in our database here. I can put one just to show you how this would work. User const user export const users SQL table for SQLite table, and inside here we shall have a UID which has text. I prefer to use the text as the UID, text UID, and since this is a primary key, and let's import this here. Sorry, let's import text here from here. Then I think that's all. Let me just build this PNP div gen to generate our database, and there it's generated under migration. Now for us to actually look at our database, let me also push it to our local DB local, migrate to it, and then here we can actually run studio. Sorry, I meant studio, and run studio to see our database. I think I'll stop here for now, and then I'll get back to you later on, because I do have a call that I have to take on. In just a minute we shall stop here, because I want the videos to be a little shorter, and in the next video I'll be more coherent with what I'm explaining, since in this video I wasn't that coherent with it. Yep, and here we have our table which has UID on it. I think we shall start the next video from here. For right now, let me just stop this here for right now so that it's not big, and we shall start from there.